Michael Rossi, Mike Florio,
Here.
Ellen Dahlgren, Eddie Alberino, Mike Knutson, Chinzia Lettieri, Jay Mandel is not here this evening, Zach Plord, Dylan Walter, Bo Clark, Lawrence Edwards, and Susan Marcus. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I'd like to have a motion to move our current presentation benefit up on the agenda. Where did I say it?
Make it the next item.
Oh,
I can't hear what he's saying.
you don't hear anybody?
No.
Any of talking about the okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. The other thing I'd like a motion for is to add planning and zoning 24-4 to the agenda. This is 53 Shore Road CAM application to receive under new business as item 7B. So moved. Second. Thank you. Any discussion?
So you want this as 7B?
Yeah, it's gonna be 7B.
Because right now new business is 6, if we move 6A. 7 is old business and there's already a 7B. So where are you moving this to? I think 6 will be correct. 7B, yeah, 7B. 7B, I'm sorry, it's supposed to be 7B, yes. Receive under new business 7B. To receive
It should be 7.
7B, yeah.
It is 7B, it's showing up. They put it on here.
Oh, okay, so we don't need this one.
Yeah, we do. They did that. That's a sort of a cheat sheet version. Okay, so all in favor? Aye.
I don't think we have to.
Okay. Opposed? Okay, there's that. I have no other comments for tonight, so with that, I would like to welcome our guests from guest presentation from Desegregate Connecticut. Go ahead and introduce yourself and go ahead.
Cool. All right. While Chrissy's pulling that up, good evening, everyone. My name is Haritha Subramanian, and I'm an organizer with Desegregate Connecticut. I am also a sophomore at the University of Connecticut. I intern at the Connecticut General Assembly, and I am an elected commissioner of the Farmington Zoning Board of Appeals. I also organized the transit-oriented community walk audit that we did right here in Clinton back in August. So super great to be back here again.
You don't have to do that. Just hit F5. It'll go to full screen, and then in Zoom, you can go back to Zoom and say share screen.
We got it.
You shared the wrong version. Hit F5 again. Click into Desegregate Connecticut. Hit F5. There you go.
You just press the right arrow, which you can do right now. Thank you. So a little bit about Desegregate. We're a pro-homes coalition, composed of neighbors and nonprofits. And we believe that better land use laws will help make Connecticut more prosperous, equitable, and sustainable. We here at Desegregate, we believe in taking an all of the above approach to solving our problems. This means building more kinds of homes, including filling that gap of the missing middle. We also work to act at every level of government, from local, state to federal. I'm also connecting all related issues, including addressing our environmental crises and racial and class-based inequities that we have. Work, Live, Ride is a policy framework to align both local and state planning to create more transit-oriented communities, or TOCs. And a lot of times people call this transit-oriented development, or TOD, but there's a specific reason we call it TOC. By calling it TOC, we want to emphasize that this is not just a one-off project or a one-off development. It's a real community effort. And it's a framework that we use for development. And that's part of the reason why we do walk audits, because we want to replan the community, not just build new buildings. And the goal is to focus growth in areas with existing public transportation and infrastructure. So why are TOCs a great idea for Clinton? Work, Live, Ride has three parts. The first part is work, and transit-oriented communities are pro-jobs. So by encouraging mixed-use development, you think businesses on the ground floor and housing above, this generates a lot of foot traffic. Yes?
Could you please move the panel to the side?
Oh, no, no,
Oh,
see the little,
Just minimize it, push it a single line, the little.
hit the single line, yeah.
perfect. Thank you. So yes, mixed-use development, that creates foot traffic for local businesses by increasing accessibility to them. It also helps create jobs near people's homes and rejuvenates downtowns and commercial districts. The top picture is downtown stores near Yukon, where I go to school. You can see a lot of that mixed-use development that I'm talking about. Also Middletown downtown, where you also have businesses on the bottom and a bunch of apartments and higher density housing on top. Both of these areas are very vibrant, they're walkable, and I personally enjoy being in these areas among many other people. So it's something that I and many other people would love to see more of. Live, TOCs are pro homes. By having more TOCs, you create more variety to own and rent, something beyond just a single family home. It also offers better to concentrate affordable housing spending in an area. And you also find that construction is more economical this way. Cost per unit is more economical, less materials are used and less energy consumption to build this stuff. And also a higher volume to surface area. Finally, the ride, TOCs are anti-sprawl. And this is because we are concentrating development into a more walkable, higher density area. You're not going to need a car to get around because everything is closer together and there's accessible public transit available to you should you ever need to leave this area. This will increase ridership and reduce vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, and this is wonderful for the environment. TOCs are New England characters, so this is not a new idea that we just came up with. We actually used to have suburbs with trolleys that acted as local public transport. Downtowns were all mixed use, like I showed you earlier in Middletown, and fixed train stations existed to help with long distance travel. Here are some of the stats in Connecticut. We have 111 towns and cities served by local bus, rapid bus, or train stations. 42+ million annual bus rides and 40+ million annual rail rides. So here in Connecticut, we have legacy infrastructure that is a huge competitive advantage for our economy. And like I just showed you, this all refers to the existing train and bus infrastructure we have, along with the existing sewer and water infrastructure we also already have. So it's in our best interest to take advantage of this as much as we can. So what mechanisms do we have in Work, Live, Ride to help encourage the development of more TOCs? So up on the slide here are just some key refreshers about Work, Live, Ride. First, this is an opt-in locally driven process. We still want to leave a lot of the power up to our local planning and zoning commissions. There are general planning guidelines for these TOCs, but they're also incredibly flexible to allow for local nuances. The ORG, or the Office of Responsible Growth, will be providing technical assistance for town planning departments that request it. They also review compliance with guidelines and any exceptions. Municipalities that opt into this program are also prioritized for certain state funds. And these are some of those state funds that you will be prioritized for if your town chooses to opt in. I'm not going to read them all out loud, but you can take a look. So here are some key guidelines of Work Live Ride. So essentially, the local government determines which transit station to build around. So let's say in Clinton, you can use the Clinton train station. The district must be a reasonable size, must not have excessive requirements for parking, lot size, or FAR, or floor area ratio, setbacks, and height. And to be clear, because we get this question a lot, you can still require parking, but not so excessively that it discourages development of other things. You know, we don't want to see big parking lots. So still have parking, but there's a line there. Here are some affordable housing guidelines. Missing middle homes must be allowed as of right, and this requires at least 9 homes per development. Developments with 30% or more affordable housing units must be allowed as of right. Developments with 100% affordable housing owned by public housing authority, a nonprofit, or religious entity must also be allowed as of right. All other developments have inclusionary zoning requirements and public hearing processes. Cool. So this is a schedule for affordable housing requirements. This comes from CHFA, or the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority. The CHFA has deemed Clinton a high opportunity housing heating market. So they basically oversee a lot of loan programs for development and do a lot of housing research. And they have an opportunity map where they use a formula to determine both opportunity and market activity. Opportunity measures how close an area is to jobs and transit, and market activity measures home prices and growth. And the reason we take this approach is to make sure that we have inclusionary zoning guidelines that work best for your town. It doesn't really make sense to require a high amount of affordable housing supply in an area with a declining market and a low opportunity level. We don't take a one-size-fits-all approach, and this is a theme that we hope you see throughout the rest of our proposal as well. So here in Clinton, you're going to see 15% of your units required to be deed restricted affordable, just because you have a high opportunity and a heating market activity. All right, so we have put this bill through the legislature in past years, and this year we have made some changes from last year's version of the bill. This year we are focusing on just towns and cities who already have bus or rail service. So we have removed the provision about transit adjacent communities. TOC district guidelines are now universal. They're not really based on population or transit service anymore, but they are still very flexible. The environmental review process, we have now expanded that to include wetlands commissions while creating the district. Now we also have more affordability and ownership incentives, and there's also more funding incentives for infrastructure expansion. All right, so there's also something called MRDA. It's also known as the Municipal Redevelopment Authority. MRDA is a statewide public authority that is going to help towns plan more TOCs. It does not formally exist yet, but it does have some funding and it is getting staff, although it will take a while to set up. So we often get questions about, oh, is Work Live Ride the same thing as MRDA? How are these two going to work together? And essentially, Work Live Ride is designed to add on to MRDA by making more funds available through the Office of Responsible Growth, or the ORG. The ORG already exists and it already has funding allocated for it. In fact, it actually gained more funding this past legislative session. Let's say a community opts into building TODs. MRDA can help come in and help fund some projects. The ORG, however, goes further and coordinates with the other state agencies to act as a state planning office. So Clinton, you guys have the option to do both. You know, you can create a TOC district. The ORG can oversee some aspects of it by providing both technical assistance, collaboration across the region and other state agencies, and also provide additional funding. By qualifying for Work Live Ride, you will also qualify for MRTA automatically, and this can get you funding for some of that local infrastructure. Work Live Ride also syncs up with the state plan and development plans. So why should you support Work Live Ride? Work Live Ride defeats sprawl, mainly by incentivizing local governments to concentrate growth around existing infrastructure to maximize public investments. It also stops development pressures in forests, farmland, and other natural spaces we want to protect. It also helps create denser, more walkable centers near transit. This reduces traffic and driving, which reduces energy consumption and public costs. Work Live Ride also defeats small zoning. Like I said earlier, the ORG coordinates with other state agencies to act as a state planning office. There are benefits to this. We want to incentivize local governments to think bigger and to coordinate regionally around transit, not just focus it all in one town. This helps concentrate state funding and technical know-how into places that want to think bigger and more long-term, which requires collaboration from not just within your town, but also with other towns across the state. So here's some final points for you. Like I said earlier, the ORG passed the additional funding in 2023, but we need to pass the TOC district pieces in 2024. It's kind of like a two-part process right now. We also need to incorporate Work Live Ride into the state plan of conservation and development in 2025. And now we're going to show you the value of Work Live Ride by a case study in Clinton. So, like I said at the beginning of this, we actually did a walk audit here back in August in collaboration with your wonderful town planner, Abby. There's a lot of great momentum and potential here for the work. And you have a great ally, you have some great allies here. In terms of transit, as you guys know, you guys have Shoreline East, Amtrak, and the 9-town 641 route. The status right now is you still need to create a TOC district, and we understand that there are some infrastructure needs, particularly with respect to sewer and public water. But the ORG in this case can help provide some of that related technical assistance and help to streamline and coordinate funding for improved infrastructure, including the sewer and public water you have. So because we did a walk audit here, we always like to do a workshop after those walk audits. So I have an entire presentation prepared that's specific to Clinton about our findings from the walk audit. So if you guys are interested in that, please feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to share that with you. Some of the feedback that people shared includes adding bike trails, which there's a lot of opportunity here for, mixed use development, middle housing, more community gathering spaces, sidewalks, and more. Even when I was walking through Clinton downtown, I personally saw a lot of potential. It's a cute aesthetic downtown. I would love to see it be taken further. All right, so
Can you send that to Christy to distribute to the commission?
yes, of course.
Oh,
Yeah, that's the end. Do we have any questions?
I do.
Yes.
I'd like to start, so we have a, transit-oriented, development, regulation, and we have a transit-oriented development area. It looks like what we would be missing is the, well, of course, to make it higher density, we need the sewers, as you noted. Right. But the other thing that's missing is we don't have the requirements for the affordable housing that's in there.
I see.
I don't think that's in our current one, so that would, what I would like to know beyond that is what we would need to have in our regulations that would allow us to opt in. Because since we have a building block, you know, and then find out if that's something that then we can get, community support for.
For sure. As far as I know, I think, like I mentioned earlier, I think your requirement would be 15%. If not, this might be something you'd have to talk to the ORG with and say, you know, we are not meeting these guidelines. Like I said, they are flexible. So if you have a reason that you can't meet one of those guidelines, they will work with you to either A, help you meet those guidelines, or B, say, okay, I understand you have a valid reason to not meet it. You can still opt in and get our support.
If we were to opt in, would those regulations trump all the regulations or existing regulations? Or would they be advisory only?
That's a very big question.
That's a big question. I think,
I would, for one thing, would be very opposed to having the state or any other outside entity tell us in Clinton what to do. Advice, yes.
yes,
A sample or a guidance, sure. But to be told you have to do this if we opt in, I would be fundamentally opposed to that interference with our local government.
yes. You never have to do anything. It's
So
more
why would,
advice.
So why would we opt in?
why would we opt in as opposed to just saying getting advice, which is fine?
Mhm.
But we already have a regulation that was passed by this body, which is local and locally controlled. So why would we look to an outside entity for their vision of our town?
So, I'll just tell you. So there's, value in, you know, working with the state agency, for more TOCs. So A, you get more funding from the state, which is a huge factor here. And also B, it allows you to collaborate with the state and other towns. So you're not just focusing future development within Clinton. It helps you think regionally and think bigger.
Again, maybe it's just me, but I'm not,
Well,
I don't believe in the figures. I think Clinton should guide Clinton.
so the part of it that I'm interested in, I'll be, just so you, is the opportunity for, state funding.
State funding. Absolutely, yeah.
That would be the.
Well, that's kind of why I was asking, you know,
Right.
you know, do we have, when we opt in, are we bound by certain criteria? Or can we apply
Well,
our TOD regulations and still opt?
yeah, that was sort of my question about the, you know, the density, the density and the percentage of affordable, which would be things that we would have to change, it sounds like, to opt in.
So-
So they could withhold funding that we'd otherwise be eligible for if we didn't opt into it.
Wait, what?
Like the funding, they could potentially withhold funding if we'd be eligible.
So because we decided not to go along with the TOC, then that means we're not eligible for otherwise funding
Right.
that we still would need on a
Because,
local level. I
Like
understand.
Chairman said, like, we were mentioning sewers and stuff, you know, and that, and we were talking, about getting a municipal, like, behind, just, you know, looking for a spot for municipal, sewer, you know, large septic, septic. So, they may be there to help us with that, but then will they withhold, we spend a lot of money, would they tell us how to manage that? What would, like the parking lot behind. Well, I stuttered here, I usually don't.
Yeah, no,
The parking lot behind the restaurant,
Main,
East Main.
yes. by
Thank
the
you,
railroad.
thank you. And we make that into, you know, a municipal, septic
yes.
service.
So,
So other people can hook up.
okay, so the biggest point here is, yes, if you opt in, there are these guidelines that you have to meet, but there's an asterisk there. If you aren't able to meet those requirements, you simply say, this is why we can't meet those requirements, and the ORG is more than willing to be flexible with that. They're not rigid guidelines, they're flexible.
Can you still give us our money?
Yes, yeah, because you're still technically opted in with exceptions.
But
If you were to opt in, is there anything to keep it from opting out?
I don't believe so.
That's an important factor.
Yeah. I will check on that and get back to
Give me the money.
you.
You know, I think what we should point out too is that a lot of our areas, like for instance, the TODD and even the area behind the East Main Street, they're privately owned.
Everything's
So the
fine.
municipality doesn't have control over that.
Mhm.
So that's another factor that's not taken into account in this discussion.
So we'd have to get all those people to sign on.
Well,
I guess the benefit to them would be if they were to expand, they could sign on and perhaps get funding for their project. But
right,
how would that work to allow other development to tap into that funding? I guess is my question. Or would it be strictly a benefit to a developer?
Abby, you wanted to?
It's my understanding, and I mean, correct me if I'm not understanding this correctly, but there's sort of a two-tier opt-in process. There's a municipal resolution that sort of for 18 months stands for potential eligibility for funding, and then the actual zoning would have to be adopted. So what this is it's pushing communities to adopt zoning that enables the infill of development and intensity of development and affordability components around transit stations that the various, and whether it's desegregated or folks at the state or whoever else are looking for. So individual property owners would not be opting in or out. This is a conversation with the commission about
individual property owners be eligible for some of the funding is my question.
So some of the funding streams that you talked about, like, for example, the brownfields monies, oftentimes folks can partner with municipalities and access those funds that way. The things to think about, I didn't see anything in the legislation as proposed that would preclude us from receiving those funds. We simply wouldn't be prioritized,
Yes.
right? So if two applications are equal, you've got a TOD community and a non-TOD community applying for the same money, that one gets more priority.
Miss Ab, would they clean up like Kelly Bostage?
That's a little bit farther out, so we can talk about, if we want to talk brownfields, we can talk brownfields probably at another time, but the fundamentals here, and I think it's important to look at this in some context. So this is a piece of proposed legislation, it's gone to public hearing, correct? saw a bunch of
Yes, so I
testimony.
can talk a little bit about where this bill is at right now. So this bill, we're provided, it's House Bill 5390. We have had our public hearing. We just had it this past Wednesday. We had a lot more support than opposition, even more support than last year, actually. Currently going through the planning and development process. This Friday, we're looking to hopefully get it JF and get a joint favorable on there. And if it goes through committee, it'll eventually get on the floor. And the whole reason that we do this, we come to planning and zoning commissions to really educate you about our bill and also use this as an opportunity to get feedback. So thank you for the questions. But essentially this also means that we still have the opportunity to continue to tweak stuff over the next couple of weeks before this gets on the floor.
And my understanding is that even the testimony has been received, but you can still submit testimony
Yes.
throughout the process.
Yes.
So there is that opportunity. One thing that I'll send the link to the bills for folks to take a closer look at. There is testimony for and against. Certainly it comes on both sides of the aisle. I think Sam Gold from RiverCog noted in the RiverCog testimony that there were some elements that were improved from the last legislative session proposal, but that in this particular bill, one of the questions is still, is the planning process kept intact and sort of the POCD function and focus as the first required step before zoning amendments are proposed to the TOD? So there's that question that I think would be something that we want to take a look at. But again, there's a number of things sort of moving in the direction of TOD, and whether it's the exact terms of the legislation as it stands today, whether it's this and tweaked, whether it's something else, funding seems to be moving in that general direction and the winds seem to be shifting there. And so the question for the commission, as you look at the contents of our existing TOD overlay, if you look at the conversation we just had with the regulations committee about how to manage the potential rezoning of downtown, there will be elements that will be supportive of TOD that this commission will decide of its own volition, and whether to opt in or not. If the regulations that you come up with are such that they align with the conditions and such, then you've crafted something that you can consider, whether you recommend to the town council to opt in or not.
One more question, if I may, Mr. Chairman, the Cheese Roll Punch has a lot of contaminations, there's a lot of stuff in there. Because, if it doesn't, come to volition what he wants to do, and we decide what we can do, and then with the funding, and, with funding and the cleanup, the brownfield, we can probably make some changes for the affordable housing. I'm just saying, with the 830G, and the funding from them, we can probably make that come to fruition. I'm just saying.
There's a lot of layers to that and the way in which that property changed hands and some other
Right.
pieces relative to how that all came about. There's a lot of background that we probably don't need to get into today, but
Right.
certainly, I'll check in with Mr. Matthew knows who is on this project, but there are tools out there. The short answer is that when we're looking at various aspects within the half-mile to mile radius around the train station, which is really that TOD focus area, there are options, there are things we can consider and things that we can do as a town to be more proactive. And so our zoning element is one of them. There's other pieces that will come up with the town council and other stuff. So we can certainly do, as we move forward with that conversation, and wrap some of this in there as well.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And I'm really impressed with all your conventions at such a young age.
Thank you so much. It means a lot.
Okay, item 4 on the agenda, review of the minutes. We have the minutes from the February 12th meeting. There a motion on the floor to approve?
Make a motion.
A second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion, any errors or omissions? I'm looking at you, Bob.
Well, I was not in attendance, so I can't,
Okay.
I can't chime in on this one.
Okay. With that then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?
I'm abstaining, I wasn't.
Yep. Got 3 abstentions because they weren't here. Okay. Let's see, I lost my place. Public hearing is item 5. We have a public hearing for Planning and Zoning Commission 24-3 proposed text amendments to section 28, accessory uses. This is, our own, regulations. When you are looking at the, text that was distributed, I want to specify that what we're working on is the part that has the, blue, markings on it. That's the, stuff with track changes that we're following. The rest of that is either, approved, or there's some stuff that we've approved that hasn't gone into effect yet, so it's not in here yet, but that's still working its way through. Okay, so focus on what's in blue. The main thing that we're doing, I'm sorry, I'm disorganized. I'm mentally shot today. You ever have those days?
Yep.
So, big thing is, the outdoor entertainment. And then also, there was another part.
I think we're a little bit backwards. There's 2 pieces. The subject of this particular application is the accessory uses for the swimming pools, storage and recreational vehicles.
Yep.
And the next piece is
Oh,
the
I'm ahead of myself.
administrative
Okay.
discussion about the phase 3 of the section 28 amendments.
Thank you. Okay, so that's right, this was the swimming, okay. And I'm looking at the wrong document, so,
And I'm happy to take folks through this if it's.
go ahead. Since I'm fried.
It's a Monday, it's absolutely. So as folks are aware, so the public hearing tonight is for PZC 24-3 amendments to section 28 accessory uses. As folks may recall, this section of the regulations, the commission has been taking in 3 parts to try to figure out how to clarify and hopefully simplify some of the accessory uses that people have taken advantage of for a long time in the Clinton zoning regulations. But there was some language in there that was causing some confusion, and also there were some issues that commission members brought up that they wanted to resolve. The first of those is the location of pools on property, and some relaxing of the setback standards. So those are included in here. So that the side and rear setbacks are amended to allow people to go slightly closer to those setback lines. Currently in the regulations, they're treated as structures, so they have to meet all of the same the structure would have to meet. Under the proposed language that the commission has put forward, there would be slight reductions in those. It should be important to note that none of the reduced setbacks go below what was in the R10 district, which is sort of the smallest setback area. So you maintain at least 10 feet for side setbacks from any pool to adjacent residential properties, and 20 feet in the rear. So that was an important piece that the commission held on to at the request of the building official as well, just to create some structural separation between properties. So that's So that's included in the proposal tonight. The other piece of language that the commission looked at was the water surface area of the pool and whether that would be counted toward the maximum ground coverage calculation. And so that was actually removed. It's noted now in this section, simply the water surface. We're not talking about patios. We're not talking about anything, anything associated with the pool infrastructure other than the water surface would not have to be calculated toward the ground coverage if this were to be adopted. Currently, that area goes into that calculation. So that's one piece.
Say one more time.
So today, if you are applying for a zoning permit
Right.
and you go to Kathy and you say, here's my ground coverage, and I'm slightly over the whole surface area of the pool, the water surface
Right.
concurrently counts as part of coverage, is the
Okay.
entire
So
pool
we-
area.
Get rid of that.
What would happen under this, at the commission's direction, would be to remove just the water surface area from that coverage calculation, so you wouldn't add that up as total.
Okay.
So that's where this is. The other elements in here, clarifying where, travel campers, travel trailers, campers, boats, trailer recreational vehicles for personal recreational use, no commercial pieces on residential properties, just clarifying where they can go, within 5 feet of setbacks and not in the front yard, so making sure that that's cleared. Clarifying some standards for storage trailers, so like, whether it's pods or, construction trailers when people are building homes or those kinds of things. Essentially, making sure that it's clear that they need to meet the same bulk standards as a conventional accessory structure. However, one of the things that we didn't clarify before the regulations was sort of the length of time that things could be there. And so what this proposed language does essentially said, you've got 2 weeks, 14 days in a calendar year, sort of free to just put these on your property and use them as you need to. If you're gonna go over that, it's gotta be in association with an active building permit for that, for whatever work is happening, and then you can keep it there, until such time as it is the final approval document. Once you finish your project, you can keep it there for 2 weeks after to get everything out.
What about when they're gonna move, like you move?
You've got a couple weeks, so you've got time.
You got 2 weeks after you're at your house?
Yeah, actually,
Take it that long to
actually,
have
for
my-
those, you've got a month. You've got a month, so like, if you need a pod dropped off at your house,
Oh,
you
okay.
got a month of it.
That's good.
No problem, just don't put it in the setback in the wrong area, and we're good, we don't really wanna be involved. And again, if you have a construction trailer or something that needs to be
That's
on there for the
different,
duration of the project, then 14 days after you finish, you've gotta take it out.
Yeah.
So that's really that piece of it. Let's see, we clarified that, outside storage areas are permissible by site plan approval. And then just added some very minor language to the alternate energy systems, essentially saying that if there's other alternate energy systems that are out there, that can be permitted by some permit. So it just adjusts future potential technology.
Sure.
So hopefully, this is the language that the commission has discussed at length over many months and brought forward to the general public for this public hearing. If the commission were to consider approval tonight, staff would recommend an effective date of April 10th to give us time to advertise. Again, it's all pending any public comment or anything like that. And then we provided some potential findings for the commission to consider relative to consistency with zoning regulations, with notice requirements, and with consistency with the POC.
Since we've had a lot of discussion about this, I would like to start the public hearing by allowing the public to speak. So at this time, if there's anyone from the public who would like to address the proposed changes to the regulations, please make yourself known. If you're on Zoom, put it in the chat so we see you, or raise your hand on Zoom, or anybody in the public here who wants to speak. Hearing none, seeing none. Okay, there any further comments from the commission members?
No,
Okay, in that case, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Staying, motion carries. Thank you. That was easy.
Anybody battle here for you?
Abby, for the removal of the existing crushed stone bocce court, do you want to save that until we get to, okay, so we'll skip that part of the staff report. You've given us the text amendment staff report, so we're done with that. New business. Wait a second, I've got to look at the one I was handed. So I get it right. New business, planning and zoning commission, 24-2, requesting text amendment to zoning regulations. The town of Clinton, permit electric vehicle charging display kiosk as an accessory use. Okay, permitted by special exception on parcels classified in the interchange development zone. Business 1 and industrial 2 districts. This was brought to us. We need to receive it and schedule for public hearing. And the next meeting is April 8th. Okay, we have a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any motion carried. The next one is the one we added, Planning and Zoning Commission 24-4.
Excuse me, sir. Attorney Motel, yep.
We just, the question for the commission is whether or not you would schedule it for a public hearing, so it's received, would you like?
Oh, yeah, I said receive and schedule.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
so it is scheduled for the 8th, I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay, the next one is Planning and Zoning Commission 24-4 coastal site plan application to remove pool and fill with select fill and replace septic system with code compliant system. We have an applicant, is Greg Pettis, and the owner, Rosario Barcella. Really butcher that name? Okay. Yeah, I don't just do it to people that I know and like. This was received, we can receive this today, we can listen to the presentation, but we can't, comment on this. Or we can't vote on this yet because we need to wait for comments from Deep. Okay, so, we will not be able to make a decision on this until next month. Is there an owner or applicant available?
Greg Pettis with Pettis Engineering, and this project actually started a year ago or so. We went to zoning board of appeals for this garage from coverage standpoint. At the time, we decided with staff that we would hold off on the CAM application because we were doing some other improvements down here that didn't require, closer to the water, it didn't require a variance. And so we decided to split it. In hindsight, probably shouldn't have, but we did. And then as I was actually, so we submitted the application because the variance basically said that we had to come back to planning and zoning and get a CAM application for any further work done. So here we are, submitted the application, paid the fee. We have CRAD approval already. I think the fire marshal said, you know, no interest because it's a single family home. Then I was driving down here today and said, kind of, do we really need a CAM? And then Abby and I were looking at the regulations and because all we're doing is kind of renovating the existing building inside, which was a pool house. Now it's going to be more of a bathhouse. And we're putting a code compliant septic system in and filling the pool in. So we're taking out the pool, filling it in with select fill and putting a small septic system in. And in reading the exemptions, I think we might conclude that we don't need a CAM application. So I'm here to, one, do that little presentation for you guys, but also ask if maybe we can make a decision on the exemption and we don't really need to be here.
Well, I think the only reason you would have, a CAM issue would be the part about, you know, the work that you're doing outside, making sure that you're not going to have runoff into the, coastal waters. I mean, that would be the main thing I would expect Deep to be looking at.
That's what deep
with
is.
this.
Yeah, sedimented erosion control.
Right,
Yeah.
so,
But I think your regulations offer maybe an exemption for what I would consider minor work, just basically taking out the existing pool and filling it level. We're not changing the grades, we're not,
How close is it to the?
it's like, 60+ feet to the mean high water. So there's, you can see mean high waters all the way back here, Long Island Sound. This is all Sandy Beach, and then there's a wall actually here, which is at the level of the current pool. So there's kind of an automatic break there. We do show silt fence across the whole thing, but basically just removing the pool, filling it with select fill, putting a septic system in, and then interior modifications.
So there should be no runoff at all.
And you do show silt fence on the plan?
Yes, we do.
And there should be no runoff at all.
No, because it's flat. I mean, it's the surround of a pool. You think of a pool.
There's
typically.
60 feet.
Yeah.
Abby, what's your opinion on the regulation?
So there's two sections that Greg was looking at, and this is all a very sort of last minute discussion that Greg mentioned to me on the way in.
I did, I was driving down and thinking.
So I, again, the application was submitted prior to having sort of another staff meeting about it. So the questions that I would have about this are, in order to determine qualification for an exemption would be, is the structure, and just refresh my memory, it's been a long time since it was at CBA, is the structure within, or any of the work proposed in the flood zone? Is there anything happening in a FEMA flood zone that would?
Yeah, well, this structure is in the flood zone.
So is the value of any of the modification going to trigger anything that would then lead to exterior renovations or modifications? Because the exemption for the accessory structures that's in CAM under 18.3.1, exterior modification of, except if you're within 100 feet of those coastal resources. So if there's any exterior work that's gonna have to be done, it would need the CAM. So again, haven't had a chance to go through the plans in that detail. And the reason that the ZBA deferred it back to say, okay, the CAM has to be done based on the level of work that was proposed at the time, or they were understanding was going to happen during their application. I think we just want to make sure that this application truly meets the exemptions. So again, will there be any need for any kind of exterior work that happens? Because that.
With the exception of the septic system filling the pool.
So there's no elevation, no stairs, nothing else for the value of trigger. So that would be one thing that I would be worried about, or just want to confirm. The other exemption that Greg was looking at was there's 18.32, construction of new or modification of existing structures incidental to the enjoyment and maintenance of residential property, including but not limited to walks, terraces, decks, driveways, swimming pools, tennis courts, docks, and detached accessory buildings, except within 100 feet of tidal wetlands. And so the commission would have to determine that what's being proposed is outside of 100 feet of tidal wetlands. And so Greg, if you want to.
Yeah, so there are no tidal wetlands. Waterward of the construction, the tidal wetlands are actually on the north side of Shore Road, on the marsh side. There is beach and there is mean high water there, but that's not what the section talks about.
Sure. Wait,
I'm sorry.
please let Greg.
Yeah, so specifically to that, there are no tidal wetlands anywhere on the site, including past the property line, which is mean high water.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked at this briefly today. I know we messaged each other because I wanted to clarify that point about the 100 feet. And also in the details, it just said the filling of the pool and the septic. It didn't mention the proposed, plan for the house. And that's what I wanted to clarify too, because just in the description when I was looking at it, it says proposed on the plan, but it didn't say that in the details when you applied. So that is part of the plan. I'm just trying to clarify now.
So says on the plans, existing pool house to be remodeled.
Right, but in the details, it didn't list that as the project description. It just said the filling of the septic, or putting the pool in the septic. So I just want to clarify what the work is that's actually being done. Okay.
Yeah.
Work on the house, I thought you said was internal.
Yes, correct. So I didn't think that was a CAM issue.
Yeah,
Remodeling.
interior only work does not trigger CAM, it would.
We put it on there so you knew why we were.
Yeah, as long as there's no exterior work being proposed, that's the biggest thing here. And traditionally, folks have come with CAM when they're this close to any coastal resource.
And even if it's an accessory type dwelling, not a.
Within 100 feet of wetlands, that's the trigger. But like I said, in this one, the details just said to refill, to remove the pool fill with suck, fill and replace septic. So it didn't say anything in the details about that. And that's
Yeah,
why
I think
wanted
I
to
tried to
Yeah,
add 2 other lines on that, on your application, but it repeats
yeah, I just.
the other
wanted to
line and it
clarify.
deletes. If you add a
Yeah, it
second line,
sounds like there's some
there's a glitch with your
discrepancy
application.
in the app, in what got put into the application and how that works. So, but it's clear now that the work on the accessory structure is included, but that work is expected to be entirely interior. Again, interior modifications to buildings are exempt under section 18 for CAM in our regulations and under the state statute, so that's perfectly fine. The question is
Substantial improvement.
Right, unless substantial improvement is tripped and there's some, modification of the structure that's necessary based on the work they're doing, which we don't know now what that will be.
Ed, you were next. Good.
Yeah, how old is that pool? How long has it been there? I
I'm
don't know how
guessing
that,
30 years at least.
I don't understand, we had no regulations back then, no, well, I mean, it's right on the water. It's right there.
Well, it's not, it's like 60+ feet away from main high
Should be,
water. It's not, I mean, 30, 40 years ago. What's that?
it's very close to that
Or no
water.
builds in-
Hey, we're removing it.
Yeah, to
so-
get rid of it.
Perfect.
Are we determining tonight or just?
No, we don't have to.
He's asking if he can get an exemption from the CAM, or if the CAM says there's not actually for an exemption, it's just.
I filed the application, paid the fee. If you guys decide, hey, we should go forward. To me, it's a very simple application. That's why I was thinking all the way down here, why am I even here? But it's up to you guys.
Go ahead, Bob.
I guess my question is more for Mr. Pettis. I kind of agree with what he's asking for. Really, all we would do with the CAM is review the plan that we've already reviewed, and it's been reviewed by Abby. See that there'd be certain, SD controls put in place. So my question for you is, are you concerned about a neighbor raising a stink if we don't go through with the CAM?
No, why? Because I don't think it would be a public hearing anyway.
No, but I mean, that doesn't preclude somebody from,
Right. No.
complaining and.
I mean, we're getting rid of a pool, which some people might think is not appropriate for that location, but.
Well, if you're gonna do it today, no. It would be.
Well, with the new relaxed,
Go ahead.
regulations.
If you just summarize, like, it's 63 feet, you said, so within the 100 feet, it's a swimming pool, and there's no exterior, work done. Those are like the high notes to hit.
Right.
This.
Well, it's within 100 feet of a coastal resource, but not tidal wetlands.
Yeah,
There are no tidal wetlands on our site.
gotcha. So, I mean, and the only, not the only, but the relevant, regulation is 18.3.
Correct. The only other piece is the section 17, which is the FEMA regulations, and then the coastal, or those are the floodplain management regulations. And so the only outstanding question would be, if something happened, if the homeowners decided they wanted to do something different, if substantial improvement in that section were triggered, and there's something that has to be done that would then require an exterior modification to the structure, that would not be exempt, and that would have to come back to you to CAM. So that would be the only reason. But what Mr. Pettis is proposing here, he's saying that is not on the table right now. That's not part of the application. The issue here is that staff does not know what the extent of those interior renovations are, or whether they trigger or anything else. So if that comes forward in the future, he may be back. But again, if you're keeping it under the value and you're in that space.
Because I think
Yeah.
if we did go over the substantial improvement and there wasn't an exemption for that, the pool house or bathhouse would be 15 feet in the air.
it gets high and then you wind up having exterior stairs and then that's the time when you're gonna wind up having to come back, you know, you would get
Which-
triggered at that
We
point.
probably wouldn't do, we wouldn't
It
do
would
it.
be a burden, yes.
Go ahead, Rob.
Do we have to authorize a waiver or do we just?
No, you could just find that what's been, as he's described it, is exempt under CAM from having to come to the
That's
commission. It's not exempt from permits, it's, but you
Can we
could
make
say
a
that it's
proposal
exempt.
for that?
Make a motion.
You could make such a motion, but I would tie it,
Yeah.
I would tie it to, the regulations, essentially saying that 18, that, you know, whether it's 18.3.1 or 18.3.2, that you believe qualify. 18.3.1 is those, what was I gonna say? Oh, sorry, 18.3.6. 18.3.6 is the interior modifications to building, so it's only, what the applicant is proposing is only interior modifications to building. And you would be saying that, it's because you are not constructing any new, you are modifying, existing structures, pools, tennis courts, courtyard, that kind of stuff. The only other thing that I was not sure here, Greg, because again, the application was just come in. The coverage calculations, Kathy, were you able to review that, or have we had time to
Yeah,
review
it
that?
just came in this late.
Well, we had gone through the coverage calculation for the variance.
Correct,
That's
and-
the-
but we wanted to make sure the consistency between the CDA plan and
Yep.
this one, we just want to make sure is there.
That was kind of a sticky point at the ZBA because, you know, we weren't necessarily showing this, but we were counting
Correct, which is why
counting
they
the
were
ultimate
so.
coverage. So I'm happy if you guys check it.
Yeah, it's why the ZBA was so adamant about it coming back for CAM was because they
Yep.
wanted to verify that the coverage was correct within the CAM jurisdiction, that there wasn't anything being added, there wasn't anything that was going to change that.
I
calculation.
want to look at their motion too.
We added the pool came, the whole pool and the surround and all that came out, which was concrete. And I think that the pool water surface actually counted.
Mhm.
So that all came out.
So you reduced your coverage.
We reduced the coverage, but we still were over, we reduced it considerably. We were, it's right here. Yeah, we were 42.2% and dropped it down to 32. We still needed a variance. That was the one variance we needed.
And which was granted, so they did get credits for that.
When can we expect correspondence back?
They have 35 days and it was just submitted today, so. We
Yeah, don't
haven't
hold-
done a deep review on it.
Yeah, so it's possible it'd be back by next month, but it's possible that it would be, 2 weeks.
When the ground's frozen again, it'll come through, we're going to be out there.
So did you make the motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to have the, CAM, exempted, in 1836, you said?
18.3.6 interior modifications to building. And you're essentially saying that that the work being proposed does not trigger CAM under the provision of 18.3.2, that basically any modification to existing elements within 100 feet of tidal wetlands.
Yes,
Can I just ask for a point of clarification, for Abby, would you like more time to look this through since you just got the application before we start making motion
We
to
just-
give exemption and CAM, is that okay? Is that?
The commission can proceed in whatever direction that you want. I will tell you that staff has not had time yet to fully vet this application because it just came in.
Well, that's-
And so we know, we're familiar with the project from the ZBA application. We know what was on it before. We just haven't had time to look at what's been proposed in this set of materials. And so, you know, that's sort of Greg's word about what is being proposed. And that's typically, we review things, and provide you with a recommendation. It's not.
I guess I would say that if you guys can make a motion to exempt it and then staff finds that we know Greg's wrong.
Yeah. well,
We still have the application
Go through it.
there, we can.
well, then you'd have to reapply.
You have to read.
You're kind of putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
I feel like we should allow our town manager, to have time to review this effort.
Town planner.
Sorry, town planner, to have.
You would have
time-
got raised, though.
That town planner to have time to review this application since she just received it. And come back the next meeting with a decision, from P and
You
Z.
virtually just got this when?
Today.
Today.
I think that's.
I think we submitted.
Yeah, last week. It was submitted last week. It wasn't submitted.
Yeah, it was at the end of our workday on Friday.
Today is when I drove down here and said,
Well,
well,
I think
it really should be exact.
I think we need to, we should
Let
hold
them
on
have-
on the decision.
let them hold, let them do their.
And again, if it's straight, the intention here is not to put Greg on the spot or anything else. It's just, I don't feel comfortable making a recommendation to the commission on something that I haven't fully reviewed.
Yeah.
It's not, again,
It's direct.
if it's consistent with the other application, we may be just fine.
Well,
In that case,
can I just ask one quick question? If staff finds that it should be exempt, then I just don't need to apply. right?
Just withdraw what you have.
Right. You can
I withdraw and I don't need to come back next month.
Right.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, so you've got nothing to lose.
You're gonna lose, Greg. But
I only
you
had
should
something.
Yeah, I think that's a prudent approach.
That's fine.
Did we make the motion to receive this?
Not me, Kirk.
So at this time, then I would like to, entertain a motion just to receive this, so that we can, consider it next month if it's necessary.
Okay.
You'll do a second.
I make a motion.
Second. I'll second.
God, he beat you.
He's second, I'm making the motion.
Okay, I got it back.
How can you second a motion that hasn't been made?
He did.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry, Bill made the motion.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Well, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained, motion carried. Okay, old business. We have, Planning and Zoning Commission 24-1, removal of existing truck stone box court at Clinton Town Beach. This is the one where they want to replace it with an asphalt basketball court and surrounding fence with 100 feet of tidal wetlands. It's eligible for, a decision tonight. We had delayed it last month because we were, we asked for, modified plans. Did we receive modified plans? I did not see them.
We did. They're in the application, they're.
Okay.
Yes and no, right? Because there's.
Yes, and
You've received a modified plan, and the applicants can certainly kind of walk you through, the plan moved the basketball court closer to the parking lot, or as the commission requested. We're still in that 50-foot buffer to tidal wetlands, element that is in there. The plans, revised plans as submitted show I think it's 1,022 square feet still in that buffer area as shown on the submitted plans. So I think it's a question, it's really a conversation with the applicant now about compliance with section 26. And, certainly the commission has received, feedback from DEEP saying that this is not inconsistent with DEEP policy or their piece. Our regulations for this 50 feet are more restrictive than the state policy. So DEEP has sort of said, yes, this is consistent and normal and fine. There was a modification made. And the question for the commission is in section 26, with that prohibition in the buffer area, do you have any questions for the applicant on that front?
Okay. Well, this is. Gotta make sure. Okay, this is a, site plan, so it's not a public hearing.
Right.
Correct.
So I'm just making sure I have everything in order. So we can still communicate with with them. Is there, any presentation or any, thing that you want to address as the applicant?
No, I think what we were struggling.
Oh, can you identify yourself?
Yeah, I'm Bill Potter, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Okay.
I think, the way it was left at the last meeting was that you wanted us to, reduce the size, which we did. And, you wanted us to move where the first location was 7 feet to the parking lot, which we did. And I think we complied with both of those requests, and I think that's why we're here tonight. Because those are the two things that I was aware of that the discussion evolved about.
Thank you. Okay, questions from the commission? Zach, do you have something?
Yeah, so how many parking spots did you say the current ones take up?
About 10.
You moved it over and you didn't get any, like, much, out of the 50-foot zone. Is there anything prohibiting maybe moving it to where the little ones are? If you're doing
Yeah,
that?
that's going to create the same scenario. If you recall, I was very concerned about the safety.
Yeah.
And it's in the parking lot now, and now you want to move into another parking lot. You're creating the same kind of scenario. We want to get away from that. One of the important things was the safety of it down at the beach. And
No, it does have a fence, however, correct? And the current one does not, right?
I'm sorry, sir.
The new one would have a fence around it,
Yes,
correct? The existing does not have a fence.
that is correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just got one question, Bo. So kids coming in, use the basketball. Do they have to pay the children?
No,
Is there gonna be an exemption for that?
yes, my commission, that was one of their questions, and yes, we're gonna know if the kids are coming down, they're gonna have a basketball and sneakers on.
Right.
They're gonna have a life preserver and all kinds of stuff, they're going down to play basketball. We will allow that to happen.
Okay.
Yes.
That was very
And-
important.
Yeah, and that's why we do have gatekeepers there,
Yep.
so we can still control, okay? And, traffic was another concern, so that's why we have gatekeepers and everything else, so we do have
That was
those.
a concern, man, and and the thanks is good.
Mike, I will say my concern, and I think you're trying to address it, was we can't have an increase in impervious surface.
Right.
And so by moving this, the way that I, saw things, even though you're still within the 50 feet, you're putting it on surface that was already impervious. And so, it looks to me like you met what we asked for last month. Okay. It's not, I would love to have it not be in the 50-foot area altogether, but that area was already impervious. So it's not adding to it, which allows us, in my view, to approve this. You can argue with me, I'm.
No.
The chair-
Josh, is there anything you wanted?
Yeah.
I'm not.
You asked me last time?
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing, Mr. Chairman, the thing that I think is important and the thing that staff is relying on the applicants to clarify is that the revised plan still says 1,000 and change square feet of new impervious area in the 50-foot buffer. And that's the part where staff has not been able to sort of waive and say, yes, this is fine because of the language in 2862. And the question is for the applicant team is, has that been addressed? Is that a typo on the plan? Is it a calculation that's a holdover from the previous version? We just want to make sure that that's truly the number, so that what the commission approves is compliant with the regulations. And that's the hope, is that we can get to that compliance so that the project can proceed and things can move forward.
Do we have a current plan
Do
showing
we have a
that,
current
showing
plan
that
showing-
coverage?
You want it, please?
We do.
For the record, Bill Anscovich, WVA Group, I'm the consultant to the commission. The court itself has been moved intact 7.6 feet closer to the parking lot, making it contiguous to the parking lot, which was what was requested at this meeting a month ago.
That wasn't the question.
That was his question.
Wait, the question that was asked is, are you adding impervious surface or not?
Are we what? Increasing?
Adding to the impervious surface?
No.
Okay, that's the question. What you have in the written part of your description, what Abby's referring to where you say that even after you moved it, you're still adding the same amount of impervious surface.
Right, we didn't change the size of the court. We moved it contiguous to the parking lot as requested.
But it's the square feet of impervious
It's-
surface that was being added to.
It's the note,
there.
yeah, it's the
The
note on the.
area was already impervious, you're not adding impervious, is what we're getting at.
Total area
Court
of additional surface.
7.5 feet back. We took the whole thing and we slid it over contiguous. We did not increase.
But there's a note right there, total area of additional impervious surface within 50 feet.
That's what I'm talking about. Do we have a plan to show that delete
This
that?
is the revised.
Okay, but it has the wrong notation.
He didn't make the notation. You didn't correct the notation. That's what we're getting at.
Well, it's on
That's what was the question, is that note right there?
Well, if that's a bone of contention, we can remove that note for you.
That's where we're at.
That's what we're asking.
We need to have a plan in our possession without that notation on it. I think it's before we make a decision. We can't
I'll be
make a
honest with
decision
you,
with the plan that's
I
submitted
really
has
don't
that-
know how that came to be.
Okay.
Within 50 feet of the setback.
Okay.
I can recalculate the area and get
If
that
you
back
remove
to
that
that.
notation, sir,
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
I don't believe you have to recalculate the area. You've done that, but you have to submit a plan without that notation that says you are, that the notation.
We actually, it would be better, you're right, it would be better to recalculate it and be, so that we know that it's right, rather than just crossing it out.
you know what we're talking about?
Okay, you wanna remove.
Yes.
If you can run into another room with a computer and go grab a computer.
Yeah,
No,
so,
we need to make sure
So
that.
there's gotta be a
We
plan.
need to make those numbers correct, but that is, it's an error and not.
Said the numbers were right.
So just everyone, the conversation now is the following use and activities are prohibited within the buffer, and it's a pool, tennis court, patio, that's the stuff, and it's within the 50-foot buffer. It's like 26.8.2 is what the rule says.
Right.
So if there's 1 foot in this 50-foot buffer, this is not compliant with our regulation.
Correct. That's what happened last time we wanted to go through this.
So I'm saying he moved it 7 feet, but that's not, that we thought that would help, and if that's the right number, if it's 500 feet, it's still not
In
compliance. So we added this, I mean, we can't, it's our regulations, is what they say at that point. That's where the contention arises.
You can't just take it out.
Right. But I said, if the numbers are right, we should take it out.
Yeah.
But as Zach points out, he's still within
Within the
50
50
feet, and that's not
But
allowed.
that's when Abby said that she talked to Deep and that they said we have very strict standards of the 50 feet, but it's not out of the ordinary for something like this to be done.
Yeah.
And meet requirements and of state requirements
That's
and
why.
standards, am I correct?
Forward this way.
But you would have to get a variance.
Yeah, I was gonna
We
say,
don't have the ability to override our own regulation.
correct. That's the important part.
We don't have the.
And we've been through this in multiple conversations throughout months of back and forth and, tried to be clear about this and sent some emails earlier, last week to sort of say, hey, we're seeing this note on the plan. Is this the correct calculation? Is there a reduction? Can we think about the parking area, that kind of stuff? There may be ways to move it over, still have the size of basketball court and retain 3 parallel spaces because the drive aisles are very wide there. There could be, again, we're sort of pulling our hair out of staff to say, how can we help make this project happen?
We're trying to.
Just for the conversation too, I have the last plan we have up here, it was 1260 square feet, this one is 1022 square feet. But like, assuming he recalculates and it's the right number, this doesn't meet the regulations. Is the.
Doesn't.
Does
No,
not,
it
it is
doesn't.
within,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
Okay.
So we don't have the ability to override our own regulations. You would have to get a variance from ZBA.
Or move it.
Or move it.
Or move
it.
One of the questions I was trying to ask before was, if you put the fences where the current basketball court is, make that an actual court, could you maybe build a parking lot over to these spots and put in the impervious spaces or something like that? Just a.
Trying to shift the
Yeah.
parking spots.
So,
Shift the spaces.
just to be clear, where we're at is very, very strict. It's there's really nothing we can do. I mean, if you give us some tools, we'll help you, but as it stands right now, you're not in compliance. Thank you.
I mean, it's up to the commission on how they want to approach this. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's probably the best place to put the basketball court. If this board doesn't see fit to approve it, that's your prerogative. I mean, there's, it is what it is. I'd just like to say that, you know, at the last meeting, we were instructed and we followed those instructions. Subsequent to that, last week, I got some additional comments from Abby and the staff, and which I personally thought was not appropriate, since we had what we thought was instructions on how to proceed to get the approval. That being the case, I misinterpreted that or whatever, but that's, I'd like to go on record saying that. Thank you very much.
Last meeting, I will remind everybody, we did look at where we thought the 50-foot would be, and it was part of the 7-foot movement was, we thought that would get it out of the 50-foot area.
And we wanted to see a model of what it looked like and if it actually did get it out of the 50-foot area.
Exactly.
So now we have that model and we've looked at it and it's still not making sense when in relation to our regulations. So it wasn't a guarantee that the planning and zoning would pass it. It was saying, you need to make these modifications before we can now decide on this new plan. And if it fits our regulations, which it still does not fit the regulations.
Well, Mr. Chairman, in all due respect, that should have been known at last meeting, not subsequent emails coming back and forth between.
So the emails were trying to assist you, they were appropriate. I would absolutely defend, the town planner giving you advice on ways to make your plan more compliant. I mean, that is absolutely.
And we can certainly provide a chain of correspondence over months to explain to the commission how many times.
We
Section
know
of the
that.
regulation has been,
You
yeah,
don't
no, I
have-
just want to
you
make
don't
sure
have
it's.
to say no to that.
But certainly, like I said, you know, and I've talked about this a number of times, we want to see the project go forward in a compliant manner. We want to help and see this happen. That's been the goal all along.
We all, everybody wants this to happen, the whole town, everyone wants to help you, but we have to be compliant too. You know?
That's fine, but we're never gonna get that court out of that buffer area, so.
So maybe
Then it can't
You
be
could
there.
have said, deny this before instead of having us come back again.
If you say you can't do it,
Then we can't do it.
then you can't do it. Let's stop. We'll find another place. I mean, it's just,
We can't say, go ahead and do it if our regulations, we don't have an exemption in our regulations for that 50-foot buffer. So no, we can be 100% in agreement with your project and love your project, but we do not have the authority to override our own regulations. If we did that, we could be making exceptions for everybody.
yeah, we can't do
That's
that.
why zoning has to be.
Understood,
Okay.
understood.
I don't feel that we need to discuss this further.
No, I'm sticking up for.
I guess the question is, do we want to continue or do we just want to make a motion to deny? We don't have to make a decision tonight, correct?
No, we don't have to make a decision tonight, but we will have to next meeting if, one way or the other.
Okay.
So I would entertain a motion to continue and if there's any opportunity for them to adjust their plan.
The only next step would be the variance, which would go to the, yeah,
Yeah,
so.
but that would be after we deny.
Right. So I'll make a motion to continue it to our next meeting.
Okay, we got a second here. Your voice is.
Whoa, really?
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining, motion carries. Thank you. Look at. Okay, discussion of proposed amendments to section 28 zoning regulations. This is what I started with before and then didn't finish.
Mike, I think. You have a comment?
No, I wanted to know if I could address the question. Sure. Just so I can be
clear.
I'm sorry, that's
Direct my
clear.
commission.
Please identify yourself for the record for us.
Joe Scatino, Chairman of the Park and Rec Commission. I just want to be absolutely clear so I know what direction to give to my commission. We already know certain facts can't be altered. The court needs to go where it's going. And it can't be changed, it can't be reduced anymore in size. So are we saying that the only way to obtain this then and get it into that area is to obtain a variance to put it in that area? And that would be the next step.
Correct. So you would need a variance, or you would need to reduce the impervious area and use a different material that water can flow
So
through.
assuming for argument's sake, that we cannot reduce the area anymore,
Correct. If you
then the
cannot
only
reduce,
answer is to obtain a variance.
if you
Once
can't
we
take up
obtain
any
a
more.
variance, that clears the pathway here. I just want to be sure about that. So if that's the case, if that's the answer it's gonna take, can I rescind my motion? Because then we should make a motion to deny, because he needs a denial to go to ZBA.
I think they could withdraw, subsequent, there's, that's fine procedurally.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah.
So delaying the decision allows us time to withdraw anyway. So
Correct.
before the next meeting.
It'll
So,
give you
but that's
choices.
why, I just want to be absolutely clear, so I am giving the correct direction to my commission. So,
And I understand your frustration, but
and-
but you're right, that would be an appropriate, mechanism to follow.
right, my commission has to make a decision whether to abandon the project or to pursue it further with a variance. So that's,
But I will also note, the reason given for not moving it into any of the parking area was safety, but you do have fences around it. So that safety argument does not seem, as valid as where we have it now with no fencing around it in a very unsafe place. But that is, your commission's,
the problem. the
right, that's for
problem
them to
is
solve.
moving it into the parking, into the area now that we call the parking lot, actually moves it into a roadway and a parking area, and it defeats the purpose of moving it in the first place, and actually creates a different safety
So that's
situation.
where your commission,
So that's why I'm saying, in order to keep it where it is, we have the choice of either abandoning the project or pursuing the variance.
Correct.
And that's what I wanted to be clear about.
Mr. Chairman, may I say something?
Yes, you may.
Are you guys, any of you guys engineers?
No,
Okay, I'm just throwing this out there. I know that they make impervious, I'm sorry, they make pervious concrete. If you made that, you could use pervious concrete. You could put water on it all day long, it'll go right through the concrete, right through the stone, and that'll eliminate everything. You guys have a fun, I mean, it's not gonna kill you, I'm telling you. A lot of people don't know that, it's called pervious concrete. If the water flows right through it, it'll go into the stone, you have crushed stone, concrete. There's companies out there, won't recommend anybody, but they're out there. You heard about it, Bo?
yeah.
All right, so a lot of people use it.
Okay.
That's for certain areas. I'm just saying, instead of abandoning it and throwing everything down the tubes and not having what you want, you can have exactly what you want. You can probably even make it bigger and you use pervious concrete. Period.
Ellen, you had a comment?
just technically saying that variance is the only path forward. Technically, they also put in an application to change our regs.
Yeah, they could do that too.
I'm sorry,
She said that the other opportunity would be to put in a proposal to change the regulation.
I understand, thank you. One more question, Michael.
Go ahead.
If their plan is to go to ZBA, don't we need to deny the application first?
No, they can
They can
withdraw.
withdraw.
Okay, but don't they need to deny before they go to ZBA?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. In Orange, we had to go, you had to come to
No,
ZBA,
no.
get denied, and then go to ZBA, it's kind of a.
That's not necessary. Nobody like playing here? Okay.
No, and just to address your comments. I think the fact that the town planner has indicated that, because we're not in compliance with the regulations, and in order to do that, I think that gives us the grounds to go to ZBA anyway. So, good luck.
Thank you. Good luck. Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you
The
very much.
next item is discussion of the potential amendments to section 28. The final part of our three-part series on section 28. We have the regulations that we discussed last time. They were put in a document for us by the town staff. And so what we need to do is determine whether this is ready to go to public hearing.
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
On M3, it reads, except for events sponsored by the town of Clinton, and it goes on from there. Has our governing body, our legislative body exempted themselves?
Hang on, just 1 second. Before we get into the new stuff, have we gone through the text amendments for the actual application for the phase 2 to act on those? Or are we-
That's me.
Oh, no, I skipped it because it was me. I'm sorry. You're right. So we have the public hearing that closed and is now eligible for a decision. That's what,
Audience up till, okay, we're saying the non-blue?
no, this is the swimming pool and the,
Up to K.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
This is the recommended. I thought we approved that earlier.
well, no, we closed the public hearing.
Okay.
So now we're on the decision. So, thank you. Would anybody, is there any discussion or would anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion and I'll use the recommended motion. I move to approve the proposed changes to section 28 of the Clinton zoning regulations as drafted in application PZ 24-3 with an effective date of April 10th, 2024, and adopt the following findings of fact. The public hearing for the proposed text amendments to section 28 of the Clinton zoning regulations met the notice requirements in section 4.39 of the Clinton zoning regulations and Connecticut General Statutes 8-7D. The proposed amendments are consistent with section 1.4 purpose of the Clinton zoning regulations, and the proposed amendments are generally consistent with the vision for preservation of neighborhood character included in the 2015 Plan of Conservation and Development.
I second it.
Thank you. Hey, you got winning. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining, motion carries, thank you. Now we can get to the last part of the.
What do you want from my-
I know, I told you, I'm exhausted, I'm not all here tonight, I apologize again.
Okay.
So section 28, the final portions of this. Do we have any discussion before we bring it to, public hearing? And Bo, you had a comment.
I have a question for staff where it reads, except for events sponsored by the town of Clinton. Has that been approved by the legislative body?
So- The legislative body has not generally exempted the town from zoning regulations. That's not been done. In fact, that was proposed, I think, like a decade ago or something, was vehemently shot down, that generally, the town would have to comply with all of the zoning
So
regulations.
we don't have the authority to make that exception.
So we could remove that. This is the language. that we
I think it has to have a choice. I mean, the statutes clearly say that the town has to pass that.
Mhm. So it would basically start with the sentence facilitators. Yeah.
Okay, any other, questions or comments before we?
No, that was my boy. We just got it. He's not on mute.
would you like to make a motion to turn this public hearing?
I'd like to make a motion to send this to public hearing.
Okay, on, April eighth. Okay, on
On
April,
April eighth, 2024.
thank you.
Second.
Second,
All right, Dylan.
Dylan got it in a second, okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion carries, thank you. Now, back to that. Okay, next we are on the committee reports, we have the regulations committee meeting, we had two things on the agenda for the regulations committee. The first one was looking at the downtown, area and what we wanted to do with that. And what came out of that meeting was that we, wanted to ask, at this time to work on the, excuse me. At this time, we wanted to work on those, design standards first.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so that would be for the whole town. We, have asked, Abby and, the staff to work on getting us examples of design standards so that we can use those in the regulations committee to build on that. The other areas of developing a downtown district that might, and defining the downtown itself even, we wanted to wait until we hear more from other boards and commissions that are working on this so that we aren't working at cross purposes with them. And at the same time, it gives us time to put it into the, put any of this effort into the town plan of conservation and development. Okay. So that was how we decided to stage it at that meeting. And if there's anybody here who was there were several of you here, did I misstate any of that part? No. Okay, that's amazing. The next part of the report is that, we were looking at contractor signs, and the basic, conclusion was that just looking at contractor signs in the absence of dealing with the fact that our entire sign regulation section is contradictory to itself, is not worth doing. It's more important that we actually do something with the entire sign section and do that as one piece rather than, piecemeal, which is likely to continue the, proliferation of, non-compliant or disagreements within the regulation itself. So we have parts that, say two different, rules that don't agree with each other right now. And so making exceptions with one sign type is just gonna add to that. So we're wanting to just fix all the sign regs instead.
That's a logical.
Very good. Okay.
Yep, very good.
And so that's our report from the regulations committee. Zach?
Can I just make a comment of something that I thought was useful that came out of that too? We talked about the design standards, and during that presentation before, we discussed how like in a transit oriented community, it's like we have a lot of privately owned, businesses, the design standard, but then incorporate, if I'm correct, if those properties were to change hands or change use, these upcoming regulations we propose discussing.
Everything stays with our regulations.
The
Everything
next
stays with
generation.
The next,
So like in terms of the transit oriented community and design or, development,
stays with the building.
exactly, it would go with that building.
Absolutely.
So, I don't know, I thought that's like one of the answers to our questions before. How do we impact the private ownership, kind of?
Yeah, because I did give you an example, my barbershop had, I applied for tattoos, they came here to change the regulations. The tattoo shop stays with that reg, 235 East Main for the rest of its life. If they want, they have to be in
As
compliance.
long as they keep the use, yeah.
Right.
I think if I could answer that to some degree, I'm not sure if I'm correct or not, but I know we had certain, design standards that we incorporated when I was in Orange. And what we enacted was that any building coming in for any type of permit would then have to meet the current design standards. So, you know, even if it was an existing building that didn't change ownership, if they changed in any type of application, that would then trigger their.
So if they're changing anything on the exterior.
Correct, yeah.
Or a change of use.
Yeah.
Correct,
change
or
use,
change of
anything like
use,
that.
yeah, so they would have to
Right.
come in and then meet the current
Very
architectural
interesting.
standards.
Right.
I just thought it'd be, kind of connecting to the thing that said earlier today about that, so.
Okay, correspondence and bills, we have correspondence from the town of Madison for their text amendment. We do not have to respond to this, there's no,
Madison.
this is just an information for us. Unless somebody has something they want to respond to. Okay, we can let that go. In that case, I would, move that we adjourn. Excuse me, I would request a motion to adjourn.
So we make a motion,
I make a motion to adjourn. Give me all the real important stuff, guys. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion carried, we're adjourned at 8:38.
We're going to ask.
Come on.
Better watch out for another mile.
They drove.
Like, it's not wrong, a real